Hello, good morning, good afternoon, actually, to everybody. My name is Gulfareen Kamran, as you can see. I am a very fresh archaeologist. I recently finished my master's, and this is the agenda that I'm gonna follow. I'm gonna give my brief introduction and then go through pottery analysis and standards. I'm gonna use my master's research, which was on medieval Coquetdale pottery, and tell what my experiences were using the standards for pottery analysis. And then I'm gonna share some of the problems I faced and maybe some solutions that I found helpful, and then just sum it all up. As you can see, I'm a free spirit. I have no affiliations yet. My master's finished last year this time, and it was in artifacts and technologies. I have worked as a volunteer for Hadrian's Wall Community Archaeology Project. I've also worked with Roman Bud Oswald, Channel 4, the Great British Dig, and then also a program on Bosnian traditional pottery assemblages with British Museum. So for pottery in archaeology, pottery is one of the most common artifacts recovered in archaeological sites, but pottery is a lot like Marmite. I know today somebody said that I despise it because it's not easy. It's too many sherds coming out sometimes. Sometimes it's too little. So it invokes emotions in archaeologists, and more for those who admire the longevity. I mean, for me, it was working at Bud Oswald in 2022 in fines processing room, and there was a lot of corroded iron coming through in fine trays, and lots of nails, and among them one day came her, and which is a part of her face pot, and obviously it was covered with lots of mud. And then once it was cleaned up, you can see the eyebrows, the hairstyle, everything, the features, and that's what interests me in pottery. So amongst kilos of iron objects, when you get something like this, obviously it's gonna, make you wonder how it survived in the ground for 2,000 years. So at one point, pottery was used as a typological tool for dating a site or stratigraphic sequences, but it has come a long way since then, and it aids our understanding about provenance, technology, consumption patterns, production sequence, trade, modes of distribution, all sorts of stuff. So pottery studies have come a long way. And one of the things that we use often, all the pottery specialists, is obviously doing the analysis. And these are the points that we take from standards. In the standard, it does say that you go through characterization. As you can see that there are lots of things to go through. Just doing one pottery analysis, it's not really that easy. You have to know the wear type, grove, date. You need to know the date, what is the earliest or what is the latest, fabric, clay paste, all these things become a part of analysis. There's a characterization stage, then there's a quantification stage. Now, with quantification, there's about 4 or 5 different things that in Britain that we're using. It depends on the person that you're doing it for. You want to count them, weigh them. Are you using grams? What are you using as number of vessel count? Are you using eve? So my research used sherd count and weight because the assemblage was very fragmentary, which I'm going to talk about later in the process. So after doing the analysis, I have realized that when I was doing my literature review, I realized that the pottery reports in the past have been having these kind of issues that are either too lengthy, there's too much data, raw data, spreadsheets and spreadsheets of it. There wasn't sometimes there's not enough data. So the ones that I was looking at were from Northumbria, and in Northumbrian medieval sites, either there were too much information or too little information. Then there was inconsistencies about terminology or the degree of detail, and most of all, illustrations. Some illustrations were not telling me what kind of fabric it is. And I was also doing fabric analysis, so I needed to know what kind of inclusions they were, if it's oxidation or reduction in the pottery. And I think all of those were because of the either scale of excavation, either it was a very small project or very big project. There were some time constraints involved in those. Budget obviously comes in mind as well. We have discussed today as well that a lot of things get shoved around because there wasn't enough budget. And then also access to scientific equipment. But all these past pottery reports, the ones that I looked at from 1930s, maybe 70s, 1970, 1980, they didn't had photographs or micrographs or illustration enough to actually tell me what kind of pottery that was. So now comes the standard that we've all been talking about all day. This standard was obviously the work of the three major pottery groups: prehistoric pottery and Roman pottery and medieval pottery. And this standard also supports CIFA's standard and guidance for the collection, documentation, conservation, research of archaeological materials document. Now, this is to ensure best practice, and it guides all the pottery specialists, project managers, curators, archivists, or anyone like me, like a student who wants to do a pottery research for master's. And it tells us the guidelines. Now, and that's the thing. There are other things involved as well. A pottery recording guide from past, CIFA's toolkit that has been updated recently, reference collections, and reference books. So I used all of them for my analysis. Now, in the standard, there is a structure that we're supposed to follow. And in that structure, it says that project planning is a project planning stage with either it's a brief or a proposal or project design. Pottery specialists should be involved right at the beginning of it. They should be able to talk to the field archaeologists or whoever is in charge, and then set out the ground rules, how the pottery is going to be excavated, collected, packed up, sampled, and all of those things are supposed to go according to plan. And if they do, then the rest of it will follow nicely. The collection part, assessment part, and then obviously pottery analysis. And then if all of these are followed as they should say in the guidelines, then you should be able to do the analysis, reporting, and archiving. Now, this is my research, medieval Coquetdale pottery. It was my title is quite mouthful. It's about obviously pottery from these three different sites, three predominantly medieval sites from Barrowburn Mill, Haptonburn, and Linbrig. Now, this pottery was excavated by a community archaeology project over 10 years, and they were overlapping. So some years they will work on Barrowburn and Linbrig, some years they will do Hapton and Barrowburn Mill. So, but I took all three sites because I wanted to do the cross-examination between the sites. They were almost the same time, so I wanted to know if any of the fabrics were matching, if any of the things were overlapping. Now, if I can ask people who are around here who have done pottery work, if they can see problems with those bags over there. Anyone? So basically the problems that I faced were these kind of problems, like there was inconsistent information on the finds bag. So Barrowburn Mill have 11 different kind of information on the bags than the 13. And then these were done by the same archaeology project, but the guidelines, they were following guidelines, but then because it was a 10 years project, I think things started to change a little bit. So there's an inconsistent information on finds bag. There were various pottery fabrics in one bag under small finds number. So because there was a small find number given to pottery, which is usually not the case, it became a little bit difficult for me to do a fabric analysis. So that meant I had to pull out and give them suffixes with finds number and then a suffix so that I can separate all the fabrics from one bag. There was various degrees of details on small and bulk find sheets. So I couldn't use GPS locations. They were not GPS location taken for handle or a rim or big big finds. Some of the sherds, like the one at the end, were very tiny sherds. Sometimes one fabric had only one type in all of the 3 sites. Only one sherd was available. And I still had to log it because I was doing it the whole data sheet. So I had to still log it, and I still had to keep it. And then again, the worst of all is that there wasn't any reference collection that I could look at online, or pictures that were available online. So then brings, I worked at Bud Oswald Finds Processing room as well. For the past 2 years, I've worked there. And I have done a little bit of like training for students and researchers who are coming there who haven't done work on Bud Oswald. So what I found, that if there is a very basic finds processing training given right at the start of the project, then it is helpful for students and volunteers to know what is pot and what is not. They sort of understand what could be the identification, different kinds of pottery that you're going to find in those contexts. And then also, if there is a data management available for Northeast, especially, because I know there are other web repositories available, but there isn't really anything for the North. For North, if we have any reference collection, if we have micrographs online, especially people now working from home and try and find specialists, a lot of them who are working freelance and wants to work from home, there is nothing available online that they can just log into and can see if they are maybe close to some of the collection that has been taken out locally or regionally. And then photography and micrography in reports will help a lot. I did my fabric analysis, and then I tried to put as much information as possible, not on just the data sheets, but also through all the fabric. All the fabric groups were logged with micrographs and photographs online and available for everybody to see, so that if anybody locally is doing any research on medieval Northumberland pottery, they can actually have a look at the pottery instead of just knowing the illustrations, because illustrations don't actually give that much information if you're trying to match fabrics. So in theory, I think that pottery standards and guidelines should encourage consistency in collection, analysis, and reporting. And if there is a basic on-site training of volunteers, because a lot of community archaeology projects have lots of volunteers and students who are really at the start of everything, and even like 15 minutes of telling what is pot and what is not, and if it is pottery, what kind of pottery you should be expected to have, and then what to do when you actually find them, like processing or putting them in the bag. All that kind of information will help with the sampling. It will help later on with the pottery analyst, whoever is doing it, or pottery specialist. They will be able to better understand what it has come, where it has come from. And then again, in the end, my pet peeve is the digital data management and regional basis. If we have on everything, like said earlier, that if everything is online in one place, then you can access it all in one place. And it becomes easier for a finds person, finds specialist, pottery specialist to be able to match it. Thank you. That's it.